Hello, my name is Jill Germain, and I'll be going over my digital unit plan website for kinetic molecular theory of gases, and more specifically, gas laws. And this falls under the category of chemistry and teaching chemistry students. Um, I decided to focus on just the regular chemistry and also AP chemistry students as my two classes. And getting more specifics of going over the home page that we're on now, getting into other areas such as assessments, different lessons like one, two, and three, unit resources that could be used. Also, quickly going over the unit plan template that was used to put this together on the front end and the back end. And lastly is another tab that reverts back to my chemistry teacher website where students can find the syllabus amongst other information. So again, just going over quickly the home page where students kind of get the big picture of what's to come in the lesson plan and just focusing on 10th grade chemistry. And right off the bat, students could get an idea for what this unit is about by reading the unit summary at the top of the page, followed by breaking it down more specifically and as far as big ideas and what they'll be learning, mainly the relationships between gas pressure, temperature, volume, and moles. They'll also be doing a simulation lab online of, again, how these relationships work with temperature, pressure, and volume. And then they'll also be doing another lab, more or less three lab stations that are set up and visualizing and seeing, in real life situations on a computer, but how it's affected in life and how gases are around us every day. And you can kind of think of a real life scenario um, in any type of situation that hopefully they can take with them outside of the classroom. And again, breaking down the learning objectives in each lesson of what students will be learning and what they will get out of the lesson. And lastly, just covering the bases on the California content standards. The first one being the NGSS standards. That stands for Next Generation Science Standards. That's something new that's coming into effect this year. So that's interesting in getting the ball rolling and make sure we cover all that information or specific information that's required. And then getting into other California content standards they'll be learning in this lesson. And lastly, 21st century skills that they'll be learning as well. And that encompasses the homepage. And now moving on to the next tab titled Assessments. Here, students can get basically information of what's to come and what activities they'll be using within this unit plan, more or less. So as far as the assessment map, here's embedded in the website, but goes over entry-level assessments that we'll be doing as far as anticipation guide, formative assessments such as structured note-taking, the simulation lab that I mentioned before, the exploring gases lab I mentioned as well. That was the three lab stations on different gases. And lastly, flashcards using Quizlet. And the summative assessment will be the concept map and also writing a raft. And for the assessment summary, going into more detail of what each type of assessment will be required of them. And also in the gases lab, it kind of have the link as well to each of the labs that they'll be able to kind of get a preview or just to know how to do the lab correctly ahead of time. So given the short time period that we have in each of the class periods, it will kind of help move it along in the sense that they already know what's to come or how to do it. So that was the purpose of putting that in there as well. And here the flashcards, Quizlet again is embedded in here where they can practice or they can add on more vocabulary words or definitions or formulas that they see fit that they need more practice on. And lastly, in the summative assessments, just a little snippet of the concept map because that's a separate tab in itself, but just again, letting them know what's to come. And lastly, the raft. And these are the directions and all the information and scenarios and the rubric as well that's covered that the students will need to know and be ready for the next lessons to come. And so they were moving on onto the lessons they'll be learning, starting with lesson one is the teacher lecture. And here is the embedded lecture for the kinetic molecular theory of gases. It's easy as far as slideshow. There's a video for students as well and kind of just easily going over all the gas laws and formulas, and then doing practice problems as well that we go through as a class together. Then also just kind of testing their skills, their mindset of what we just learned to see if they're kind of catching on to see a real life scenario too. And then below is also embedded the guided notes that students will fill out as we go over the lecture above. And these are supposed to be graphs, and they'll fill in the graph relationship based on what gas law that they're learning at the moment. So moving on to lesson 2, the Weber size. So as I mentioned before, students will be doing a lab simulation online based on the 3 different gas laws and how they interact within each other based on whether pressure is held constant, volume, or temperature. And so this is instructions to show where you can find the gas law simulation. I'll show you a picture of it below so you kind of get an idea. There's also a gas laws calculator just to kind of double check your work, and also a gas laws tutorial if they need more information or if they're happen to be struggling with really grasping the lecture. But here's an example of what the gas simulation will look like online, where you'll just click on a tab, which explains to them in the procedure how to move forward and go um, and use it online. And so, for example, you hold temperature constant or pressure, and then this actually volume will move up and down depending on. So you get a kind of idea of how they're interdependent on each other. And then more or less, this will show the graphing and how it's placed and again their relationship to each other. So here's all the information that goes out detailed step by step. So again, it was Boyle's law was the first. Move on to Charles' law. There's different relationships and different constants. So again, all the information, and they're playing with this online and also filling out all the questions that are related to it. So this will take up all the time in lesson 2 that they'll be learning. And so moving on to lesson 3, the graphic organizer. So for the graphic organizer, they will be constructing a concept map. And to do this, they'll be using the website Poplet online, and kind of goes into more detail on signing up for a free user account and what to do. And there's certain requirements and bubbles that are required of them. And to kind of help this go a little bit faster, they will be working in their lab groups. So as a combined group together, just again, because time's limited in the classroom. And this is an example concept map that I'll show here in a second. So again, it's very detailed that I did, but again, just give an example for kinetic molecular theory and just concluded all the information. And this is where students will do the same, or they'll focus more just on one gas law. And lastly, the rubric that's attached to how they should do the concept map and using Poplet as well. And now moving on to unit resources. Here, students can find information that they'll be using in the unit or extra information, again, if they want to expand their knowledge or if they need help if they happen to be struggling. So I just broke it down for as far as lesson 1. Again, that's the structured note taking. So I had a website for note taking tips for science classes or a little more details on introduction to the gas laws. And then breaking up into lesson 2, where they can find that simulation lab that they need to complete the worksheet on. Going into more detail about Boyle's law, there's great videos run by the same presenter, so just very systematic and easy for them to find. And also by doing the activity sheets, they'll be doing a lot of math. And in chemistry, there's a lot of math involved, particularly stoichiometry and the ins and outs of that. So Khan Academy is a great website that's easy to follow and tends to be really helpful too for students that are really familiar with it because with other subjects too. So there's a link for them as well. And then lastly, the lesson 3, where they're doing the 3 lab stations that are set up in the classroom. So I just posted the video for easy access for them too for each of the stations, again, to give them more or less a heads up of what's to come. And that completes the unit resources. web page and moving on to the unit plan template web page. So here, just very briefly, is the unit plan digital template where it just shows all the information that, again, what was used to make up this website on the front end before we started. And lastly, everything that filled it in on the back end and changes and adjustments that were made. And definitely be helpful in the future and using other lessons for this same exact reason, use the same type of template. And lastly, the last tab on this page just goes back to my teacher website homepage. And here, the tab for the unit plans, where you can add on to it as you go on with more plans beyond the gas laws. But here, clicking on that takes you right back to the home page that we started at for the kinetic molecular theory of gases. And that completes my presentation of the website. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed it.